Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Megan, and I am the Nominations Director on the Families and Global Transition Board. And I'm currently doing a series of interviews with our 2021 offboarding directors. I'm doing this so that you are aware of the open positions this year. The open positions term commitments are from October 2021 through October 2023. And the call for applications opens March 22 and will be open through April 13th. I'm delighted to be speaking with our FIGT Secretary, Trisha, and I will be asking her a little bit about the role responsibilities and what she has found fulfilling sitting in this ExCom or the Executive Committee seat. So welcome, Trisha. Could you please tell us a little bit about your role responsibilities?
Thanks, Megan. Great to be here. I have been the executive secretary for Families and Global Transition Board this will be my 4th year. So this role is part of the executive committee, and the executive committee are the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary, and have some decision-making roles for the board. But each of them have an area of responsibility that they oversee for the board, if you like. So for me, communications falls under my area of responsibility. So my day-to-day responsibilities are to record the minutes for the board meeting every month and for the executive committee meeting every month prior to the board meeting. So that's my immediate area of responsibility. And then I work with the communications director and support them in their roles in managing the communications for Families in Global Transition.
Thank you, Trisha. Yes, we have been so delighted to have you as the secretary for the past 4 years. I know that in my role as nominations, I always enjoy seeing the minutes and how I'm so impressed how you capture the details and summarize such the critical points. So thank you for that work. I'm curious, do you currently have a committee as the secretary?
No. So the work that I do is mostly through the communications directors. So there are 2 communications directors, and they are the people that I would be in contact with most often, apart from the executive committee. And so I'm hearing about their work, how they make about communications for FIGT, and supporting them in whatever way I can. And they have a very large committee. So I'm familiar with their as well, but really my if you like my direct reports, if you're thinking from an organizational structure, and so therefore they are the 2 communications directors who do an absolutely amazing job, as did their predecessors.
Yes, Trisha, I agree. I think our communication team is so brilliant, and we can definitely see that in the growth of our numbers and how we're reaching and connecting with our community worldwide. I'm wondering, in your 4 years, in your 4-year term commitment, what have been some of the celebrations, some top contributions that you'd like to highlight right now?
Oh, it's been a big 4 years. Um, probably when I think about the board itself, some of the things that have been, very, very powerful in that time. I think the work that you've done, Megan, I know that ExCom supported you as you were, getting a really rigorous process of selection and assessment in terms of looking at the candidates for the board to ensure that we have great workers there. That's a really powerful thing, and really appreciate the work that you've done there. With the previous board, communications directors, they made a decision that they wanted to be able to, as they put it, make the conference last all year. And so they made a decision to create some content each month and on a theme that would continue to support and encourage our members and our community around global transitions. And in retrospect, that was an amazing decision that they made, because who would have known that our next conference would not be able to happen. And so in reality, the community continued to be supported by those monthly themed content that was shared across our social media channels. Communications directors have done in that ongoing content sharing has been very powerful. And that's something that I'm very proud to have had a hand in and been a part of. I think as part of the executive committee, making the really difficult decision to cancel the conference was the right decision. But at the time, because it was relatively early in the pandemic, it was a difficult decision to make. And we were very much across a great deal of information sources and risk assessments to be able to make that decision. And now then to make the decision to go virtual for the conference. We also had our first virtual members meeting, which is again a great innovation, and one that will be continued in the future, we hope. In addition, we had a series of conversations for change, which were arose out of the Black Lives Matter movement and the work that was being done in raising people's awareness of privilege and of our own positions in relation to people in groups who have been treated inequitably. So those are just some of the things that I think of in the last few years. And obviously the last 2 years have been very intense with many of the decisions that we've had to make and the challenges that we've faced. But the decisions that were made prior to that have been what supported us through that. So things like solid directors on the board, people who are putting in work to develop content, all of those things have just been wonderful supports for the challenging time that we find ourselves in.
Yes, Trisha, it's been a full 4 years for you. Definitely something that I don't think any board director currently can say, because we're all less than 4-year terms currently. But thank you for pivoting, for helping us to think strategically through those pivots, through that innovation. I also think that your professional identity and work that you do with compassion and mindfulness is something you bring in so seamlessly and beautifully to the FIGT board. And so I definitely think that that's been a calming presence and methodology that we've all embraced. And I'm curious about thinking ahead to the next secretary term. Is there an area of expansion or a focus that you would encourage people to consider?
As you are very aware, at the moment we're so focused on our virtual conference that's coming up and is going to be so exciting, and it's a little bit hard to almost lift our eyes above the parapet and sort of look out to the future. I think that the virtual conference will probably open doors to people hearing about the work that Families in Global Transition does, the researchers, the practitioners that we have access to, and it will just put us in a different position to what we were before. So there will be a difficult decision to be made. Do we stay virtual? Do we go back to in person? And that is a really difficult decision, and who knows what will happen. So that will be one of the really difficult, really interesting strategic challenges that will sit ahead. I think continuing to share content will be something that the communications directors continue to focus on. So that will be an ongoing support factor for all of the organisation. And again, the work that we've begun with our conversations for change, focusing on privilege and thinking how we could be more diverse, how we could within the board be more diverse, but also how we could reach out to a more diverse group of people who are transitioning globally, and support them as well. So that's all work that's out there, that's begun, but is, not really fully formed. And so interestingly, who would have predicted the challenges that we've faced now? And so who knows what else might be coming. So yeah, there will always be interesting things ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Trisha, how could we have predicted anything that we've experienced in the past year and now going into the second year? So again, thank you for being a leader and that modeled leadership of how to approach change in a graceful way. So I'm curious, for the incoming director and for somebody who is applying for the secretary position, what are some of the key competencies or skill sets that would be super valuable for not only in this position, but also as a seat on the executive committee?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously this role is a communications role. So there's the internal communications with the board in terms of, um, recording and encapsulating the discussions that were held in the minutes. And then there's the supporting of the communications director in their role as well. So somebody who's comfortable with communications, has good comms skills themselves, and perhaps has a familiarity with across social media channels and newsletters and those sorts of functions as well. That would be really important for that role so that they can support the communications directors. And absolutely the strategic thinking, the ability to see challenges and to think in an innovative and a strategic way. And I think probably the ability to be familiar with FIGT's mission and purpose, and to think about that from a developmental perspective. And then, it would be great too if it was somebody who had some familiarity with the board itself and the roles, the different roles within the board, so that they can sit across and understand some of those aspects really well. So it is a role that, because of its decision-making position, it would be a real advantage to have a good understanding of families in global transition and their mission, and to have some familiarity with the work that we're already doing. So it would be a great role for somebody who's already volunteering, who's already on a committee perhaps, who has sat close to some of the work that we're doing, so that they are some of the challenges we've been facing, and some of the possibilities for the future as well. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Trisha. Thank you again for your commitment and your involvement with FIGT. I know that you've been a mentor to me as when I stepped on as nominations director, to think about, what are the values, what is the mission, what is the vision of FIGT, and how can we communicate that to new members, to volunteers, and I am really grateful for that leadership. Is there anything else you would like to share?
No, Megan, except to say thank you so much for your kind words. That's really encouraging and really lovely. I appreciate it very much. You have been a wonderful support, and it's been great to see all the hard work that you've done in your role as well, and the change that you've brought. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Trisha. For our listeners, as a reminder, the open board positions call for application will be open March 22 and will be open until April 13th. You can find the application on our website at figt.org. And if you have any questions about the nominations, the process, or have any questions about where to find certain documents like the role descriptions, please don't hesitate to contact me at nominations@figt.org. Thank you, Trisha, for your time. She's joining us from New Zealand. I'm in Michigan, so we are a global community.
We are indeed. Thank you, Megan. Lovely to talk.
Absolutely. Have a good day. It's my evening. All right. Take care.